Good evening and welcome to the July 20th, 2026 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Scott Loikitz. I'm the Zoning Board Chair. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like we're listing
Yeah.
this way.
Okay.
It's a little lopsided today.
Yeah. Thank you. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this special meeting has been provided to a newspaper record. It's been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider reaching a decision. Decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube page. It's also being broadcast on Summit's government channel. That's Comcast 30, 34, and Verizon Channel 30. Transcript of this meeting is being taken using audio and video, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter. Okay. Augusto, how do we want to read the roll?
I'll handle it.
Should we have Andy do it?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Vice Chair's on.
Here.
Mr. Yuko.
Here.
Mr. Malay is expected but not yet present. Mr. Mullen.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Curran.
Here.
Ms. Chifo.
Here.
Mr. Feskins.
Here.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Here.
Mr. Bell is expected but not yet present. And Chairman Moikins.
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ball. Andy Ball, who you just heard from, is our zoning board's attorney. Mr. Ball advises the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on these applications. Jessica Sands is a city employee. She's not here tonight. She's our zoning board secretary. Our board secretary works with applicants on preparing their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. The board secretary also does not vote on these applications. Also present tonight are our experts who are hired annually by the board to provide input. Tonight we have Marie Raffet from Colliers Engineering. Also present is Ed Snikes from Burgess Associates, and he's our board planner. These experts are seated at the table to the right of the board, the public's left. They also do not vote. Our board consists of 7 regular members and 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but only a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Before we enter into executive session to vote on the application, you'll be advised of how many votes are required and what are the conditions for approval. Each case will begin with the applicants or their attorney giving an overview of the application process to date, the variances that are required. We then hear from any additional expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the applications and why these variances are needed. The board experts, then followed by our board members, may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and their expert witnesses. Due to recent cases running excessively long, we strongly encourage applicants and their experts to give brief and concise testimony so we may get to as many cases as possible in a given evening. Once the board members and then the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask their own questions. It's not a time to tell us what you think about the case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Please be careful how you phrase your questions. They should not be preceded with a statement about the case. It should be a direct question to the witness. Also, before you ask your questions, we ask that you please clearly state your name, spell your last name, provide us your address. It's important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and this is a time when you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public part of the hearing is closed, and we enter into executive session. This is where the board members discuss the case, and then we vote. You will be able to listen in on our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. I ask that each applicant and their attorney, if present, come up and give a brief synopsis of their anticipated testimony tonight, including number of witnesses, whether they can finish their presentation in 30 minutes or less, but we're going to skip that tonight because we had 2 hearings. One is being carried. So 37 Fairview.
Yeah, we did just receive correspondence from the applicants requesting to carry the application this evening until its next available date, which is September 8th. They did waive the board's timeframe to act, and they're asking to carry without further notice.
Excellent. So with that, can I get a motion to carry?
So moved?
Second.
Oh,
All right, Mr. Ball, can you call the roll?
I suppose I can do that.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry,
Double duty
that was
tonight.
Mr. Yuko moved, and second was?
Miriam.
Yeah.
Great. Vice Chair Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran.
Yes.
Ms. Chifo.
Yes.
Mr. Feskin.
Yes.
All right.
Excellent. All right, so our only hearing tonight is 11-15 Beechwood Avenue. Hillary, you want to come address us? Thank you so much.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Hillary Alls from Dempsey and Sheehan on behalf of the applicant MRY Beechwood 11-15 LLC in connection with property located at 11-15 Beechwood Road, Block 2602, Lot 1 in the CRBG zone. Following the last hearing on April 20th, the applicant carefully considered the comments and recommendations offered by the board, the Historic Preservation Commission, and the public. Working collaboratively with the design team, the applicant undertook a comprehensive redesign of the project to respond to that feedback while preserving the overall redevelopment objectives for the property. The revised plans represent a substantial departure from the original submission. Most notably, the applicant now proposes to preserve the existing Beechwood Road and side alley facades with only limited modifications necessary to accommodate accessibility and functional building access. In addition, the rear parking area has been eliminated, the side and rear setbacks have been increased, building coverage has been reduced, and the overall building has been redesigned to better respond to the character of the historic district and the concerns expressed during the prior hearing. As a result of these revisions, the relief being requested from the board has also been refined. The applicant continues to request variance relief for building height and appurtenance height, but the height for both have been reduced from the original application. Relief is also requested for the fourth story, building-mounted lighting, which has also been reduced, and illumination at the property line. As the testimony will demonstrate, several aspects of the original proposal have been reduced or eliminated, and the revised application reflects a meaningful effort to minimize the extent of the requested relief while preserving the historic character of the building and providing a functional redevelopment of the site. Tonight's presentation will begin with our architect, Michael Sass, who will present the revised design and walk the board through the architectural revisions, the revised plans, and the design considerations that shape the proposal now before you. Following Mr. Sass's testimony, our planner, Paul Greigel, will address the planning and zoning considerations and the statutory basis supporting the relief requested. So with that, I would like to call Michael Sass.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Oles before we hear from Mr. Sass? No? Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Sass was previously sworn, correct? So you remain under oath during this hearing. You may proceed.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. In response to the comments and feedback received from the Board of Adjustment and the Historic Preservation Commission at the prior hearing, can you describe the process your firm undertook with the applicant to reevaluate the design and incorporate revisions to address the concerns that were identified?
Yes, we carefully, we listened to the board and the historic preservation comments regarding the facade, the Beechwood historical elements of the building, the detail, the horizontal features of it, and also just the nature of the architecture. And we carefully went into the building, took our time to study the architecture, really study the floor, how the building was braced, how it was built, to see if we could actually preserve the facade. After further consideration and analysis, we determined that there's a way to preserve the facade, set new floor elevations, do minor modifications to get ADA accessibility, modify the windows with slight tweaks on the sill heights, and really set the elevations so that we could work with that existing facade. That will require, if you don't mind, I'm going to approach the rendering and point out a few features. Is this one on?
I think you have to turn it on.
Okay.
You could take it off the stand. There you go.
Testing? Okay.
Perfect.
So one of the modifications that we have is ADA accessibility. We need accessibility to the office entrance on the left here. So we're setting the floor plate at a lower floor elevation at what it exists today. Today it was about 14 to 18 inches above the grade, so you have to walk up steps to the entrance. So we're lowering the first floor, so you have entrance at grade from the building for the office space, and then we're holding a modification to the facade where the existing office entrance is, making that our retail element, so that we can hold those two doors close to each other and get our entrance at the same point. So we don't have any major modifications to the sidewalk or high sloping or steep sloping areas which would exceed ADA accessibility. So those two doors are held close in the middle, and then we'll hold the retail to the left of the building, or to the right of the building. The second floor, we have to, because of the floor-to-floor heights, we're lowering the window sill slightly, increasing the height of that window, but keeping the cornice element that exists there today, restoring it to its existing condition as much as possible. There's some damage that has to be repaired, rotted wood, rust, repainting, and other elements. We're going to repoint all the brick and repair it as much as we can. There are some cracked elements in that building that we previously testified to. We're going to try and reconstruct that. If reconstruction does not happen, we'll have to strap it and make a repair to support it. But reconstructing all that element and keeping that, the third floor windows will be restored to an arch top. They're currently square rectangular windows with a plywood infill on the top, so we want to make that an arch top window and bring that back to a full light. The side facade, same thing. We're going to restore that arch top window on that third floor, and then going down, we're going to infill and make that a full window opening. We'd like to remove as much of the window casing as possible. There is some blocking that will have to stay to put those new windows in, but to widen those out to as much of the masonry opening. The fourth floor is now going to replicate the building in the style of architecture. We were previously modifying that, but we thought that it would be better to, since we're restoring the facade, to keep that similar architecture down the side alleyway, keeping that arch top, and then making another cornice element at the top, and then opening up because of the weight of that. If you don't mind, I'm going to go to drawing A201. It's our beechwood facade. So due to this type of construction, which I'll get into further in further testimony, we're going to have this as a lighter frame structure on the front, so it's going to be more windows and wood style architecture that then mimics the style of the retail in the front entrance. So it has more of that 1897 style of architecture that mimics what was there previously, and we wanted to maintain that similar style of Federalist and colonial style of architecture for the building.
So now that you've described the overall changes made to the design, can you walk the board through the revised plans that have been submitted and explain the specific revisions and improvements reflected on each plan sheet?
Yes. So the first thing that we did, because we're keeping the building facade, we've now reduced the building height by about 3.67 feet. So that fourth floor, it was previously 14 feet above, they're 14 feet floor to floor. We have a reduced floor to floor height, keeping the existing building height, and then reducing that top floor to 12 feet 9 inches. That 12 feet 9 inches allows us to get structure, mechanical systems, and fire sprinkler systems within that clear story, as well as our structure. So that was one modification. We've also, I'm going to go take you to drawing SP 101. We have set back the limits of the building 5 feet around the adjoining properties. It was previously 3 feet. So we're giving them more light and air space between us and the adjacent buildings. There's some windows along that existing building that we want to just give them a little bit more space to breathe. And we're also infilling the previous parking area and making that part of the retail of the building. The other element is I'm going to go back to drawing A201. As a result of the reduced building heights, we're also reducing the appurtenance height that we were requesting. So that is now coming down 3 feet 1 inch. So we've had a decrease in the building height, we've had a decrease in the appurtenance variance request, and we've had a decrease in the building coverage, which was approximately 6% reduced area. We've also reduced, as a result of the reduced building height, the building mounted lights on the plaza, or on that top terrace. I'll go to drawing SP 401. Just give me 1 second, it's lodged. So drawing SP 401, we've reduced the height of the terrace-mounted lights, which is a previous variance request, and that's because the building height has been reduced as well. Other modifications are just on the architectural style and location of lights on the building. We're maintaining the horizontal cornice that exists there today. So building signage, lights, and illumination for this gooseneck has been reduced in height. We've also added, for safety and security, lighting around the perimeter on this back alley, because now 5 feet. We want to make sure that's illuminated so that you don't have the risk of somebody wandering back there, or if they do, it's a path of egress out also, so we have safety on the egress side of the building. And then the last modification was, I will go to drawing SP 101 again. But also, before I do that, I'll refer to detail 3 on SP 401 is our trash enclosure detail. That has been relocated to the south side on the alley for ease of pickup and drop off for the garbage truck. So on SP 101 will indicate that location on the south side. So that trash enclosure is located here on the southeast side of the building, or the southeast side of the property. So the garbage truck coming down the alleyway can pick up those trash in recycling containers and keep going down the alleyway as it currently does today.
And those are completely on the property,
Those are
right?
completely on the property,
Within the property,
correct.
and they're screened from from Beechwood?
Correct. There's screening on the front side here, so you have screening from Beechwood, and you also have just some protection on the back side so they don't get pushed into the path of egress coming out the back of the building. So they will not be in the across our property or visible from the Beechwood walkway.
And then, since you have that sheet, can you also just talk about the front setback?
Yes.
Side setbacks?
So because we're keeping the building facade, we are holding the 4.40 front yard setbacks. That's an existing setback where our property further goes into the sidewalk area, so that holds that line in the facade. And then we're also holding our side yard setback of 0.06 feet, where we were previously going to that property line. It's a minor dimension, but it does hold us to a dimension for our building area.
And Mr. Sess, remind us again, what's the setback at the 4th floor?
The setback of the 4th floor. So the 4th floor is set back 16.82 feet.
Thank you.
And if you have the site plan, if you could just talk about the drainage and the stormwater?
Yes. So that's drawing SP 201. Detail number 2 is our site utility plan. We have currently existing stormwater that comes down from our adjoining property to the north of us. It goes into a leader down the side of the building and then continues along the facade of the building on a roof leader and discharges into the catch basin on the south side of the property in the alley. We need to discontinue that because of the construction. We need to discontinue that leader, and we need to reconnect it underground to existing subsurface piping system. So we have to figure out the means and method and the best route, but we're thinking to just lower that below the building and come down through and reconnect it back in the same spot that it exists today.
And then can you just, I know that we talked about it at the last hearing, but the trees on the sidewalk.
Yes. So drawing SP 401 is our lighting plan, but also indicates our shade tree note. We spoke with John Linson early on in this, during the TRC, and he's requested that we remove those 2 trees and plant them with 2 new shade trees of his selection. So we will be replacing them in coordination with him.
Excellent. And then if you could just refer to the roof plan and just go through that, please.
Yes. So drawing A106 is our proposed roof plan. In order to service the different tenants and the different floors, we'll have 5 units. We'll have 1 for the retail on the first floor, 1 for the common area of the first floor, and then 1 unit for each floor above that. And those units will be clustered together in the middle of the building to reduce the visibility and screening. So we're trying to get that out of the line of sight in the middle of the building, and they will be properly screened in compliance with the City of Summit ordinance.
Perfect. And then I think you have an exhibit which should be marked A4 that goes through the FAR calculations for the.
So we prepared drawing AA101. I'll label it Exhibit A4.
Are we up to A4? I thought the notes said
Yes,
it was.
so we had A1 was the rendering, and then we had A2 and 3, which were materials and colors of bricks and things like that.
Okay, I only think I had a note about 2, but
Okay.
I'll take your word
Okay.
for it. We'll mark this as A4.
Okay. So drawing Exhibit A4, drawing AA101 is our proposed building area analysis. This was an analysis prepared to determine the FAR and how we calculated our floor area ratio. So it is broken down in color coding as easily as I could. We have office as green, our site circulation, which counts towards FAR, in the purple, so that's our stair towers. And we also have support area, which is our mechanical shafts, which count towards your FAR. And then common area and retail. Our basement, our storage is, our basement doesn't count towards FAR because it will be utilized only as storage for retail, so it's not part of that formula. So our total FAR for the building is 12,331 square feet, which calculates to 299% of FAR calculation. If you'd like me to, I can break down all those numbers.
Mind if I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Is there any way you could actually get to that 299 without building the 4th floor?
No. And I'll
Well,
have another exhibit that shows
Yes.
you the
Technically,
reason
you
why.
can, but if you wait for the next exhibit, I think it'll lay it out more clearly. And if you could just go through the rendering and discuss the materials and the colors and.
Yes. So, do we need to bring this one in as a new exhibit?
No, this is part of the filed plans.
Okay.
So you're good.
Very good. So the existing building is white. It's pretty much washed out. Every cornice, every detail, every element of this building is just the same color. It looks like they just took a roller or sprayer and just sprayed over it. So we want to accentuate some of the details of the building. We want to accentuate with just a light color pop on the cornice on the 2nd floor, the cornice between the 2nd and 3rd floor, and then that cornice element that caps the building. Also detailing and just giving a slight color pop and variation for the column capitals, and then that 4th floor element up above, as well as the infill. The field of the building will be a off cream or off white color to just give a slight contrast. We don't want to do a large contrast or anything along those lines, something subtle that just makes that horizontal articulation kind of accentuate the building and make it feel a little bit more reduced in design. The side facade we're going to paint. The reason why we're going to paint it is because to match that brick from 120 years ago would be almost impossible. So we can find similar style and size but we will never get a color match. So what we want to do is get ourselves to paint that side facade, keeping that rubble stone finish. Our base will be anchored with an off charcoal, something to make that retail entrance and that office entrance kind of pop from the street. So it gives you some nice contrast on the ground floor, and then the field of the building neutralizes itself and gives balance.
What's the color of the storefront mullions, and what's the color of the window frames or the storefront on the fourth floor?
So the window frames will be white on the second, third, and fourth floor.
Okay.
The ground floor will be a bronze.
Thank you.
Perfect. We're not to the exhibit yet, but I promise it'll be the one after this one. You've prepared a comparative zoning chart, which I would ask be marked as A5. And can you explain what this exhibit demonstrates and how the revised plans compare to the original submission from a bulk and zoning perspective?
Yes, so we prepared a letter dated June 23rd, 2026. That was just a summary of our changes to the plan and the approach that we had. Attached to that is a zoning analysis comparative chart. So that is this document that's attached to that letter. The area.
I'm sure if the board actually got that.
Yeah.
Oh, they did not get that letter. Okay.
So I guess if you go through it, and then I can provide the board with a copy.
Okay. So the changes that we made were, the first one on my list was building coverage. We had a reduction in the building coverage from 84.10% or 3,468 square feet to 78 point, having a hard time seeing that number. I'm going to actually bring myself to my larger.
Excuse me, you're comparing to the previous submission, not the current
Yes.
construction, just to
Correct,
clarify.
the previous submission, correct. So I'm going to utilize drawing T002, our zoning analysis and site data. So our building coverage was reduced from 84.10% now down to 78.25%. So we had a reduction of approximately 6% in building area, and that's a result of us having that greater setback along our adjoining properties on the east side of us here and to the northeast side of us. So setting ourselves back reduced our building coverage calculation.
So how many square feet does that boil out to be?
That ends up becoming 3,227 square feet, where it was previously 3,468, so it's about 220 square feet.
Okay, so you reduced that, but you actually gained office space by doing away with the parking spots.
Retail space,
Retail,
Correct.
okay, I'm sorry, retail space.
yes.
But we also increased the setback in the back of the building, so then that's why there's building.
That's where,
Yeah.
that's where the reduction was.
Yes.
And then I think there's also an increase in the total side yard from 0.1 to 0.6 feet.
Yes, so we were originally going to build out at that corner of the property, the south side of Beechwood. We're set back just 0.06 feet, whereas previously 0.01 feet.
So what's 0.06 of a foot?
It's-
6 inches?
It's inches, yes.
So you
It's
went from
inches.
1 inch to 6?
As I testified earlier, it's a minor
I wouldn't even answer it
discrepancy
personally,
or change, but it is a slight change. We also reduced the building height, though, by 3.67 feet, as I previously stated, and the appurtenance was 3 feet 1 inch. We've reduced the mounting height of the facade lighting to by 6 inches, and that's as I was stating here. We've reduced that down to where the existing cornice line is. We've reduced the terrace lighting up on the fourth floor to down approximately 2 feet or 1 foot 10 inch because the building height came down. Other modifications were signage mounting that was also reduced in height because again that cornice holds us to a certain elevation because we want to keep that existing cornice and not modify that existing facade. And then we had a modification in the illumination for our lighting so that we had egress path from around the backside. We need lighting to illuminate that 5 foot setback. So again, going back to SP 401, just illuminating this 5 foot area along the back of the property.
Okay, and then the original application also included a fourth floor component. Can you explain how the role and design of the fourth floor has changed as part of the revised plans and how it relates to the other modifications that were made in response to the comments received at the prior hearing using Exhibit A6?
So we prepared drawing AA201. It's just a area reduction analysis of the volume that was lost due to setbacks or other components or site limitations that we had. And if I can, I'll label that A6.
And can you see that from over here? Do you want it in the middle? Would that be better?
That's okay.
Yeah.
You can easily, yes.
Okay.
You
So
can see?
do you want to just move it to the
Yep.
middle? Because I think we can see it better. Thanks.
So we had a few constraints on the property. We have the existing facade, which is this image in the top right corner. The blue area is the existing setback of that facade. So that's 4.4 feet from the property line. So 4.4 feet across the property equates to 630 square feet. So that's 210 square feet per floor at 3 stories, which is permitted by the zone, by the CRBD zone. And that equates to 630 square feet of gross floor area.
If you had built to the property.
If we
line.
were to build to the property line, to that front property line, which is permitted also in the CRPD district. We have a slight encroachment of our adjoining properties here on the north side. Both of those buildings have a slight encroachment onto our property, and the elevator is allowed to be eliminated from the calculation. So that, across 3 floors, at 119 square feet per floor, is 357 square feet gross floor area. Our increased setback of 5 feet, that L shape in green, that's this one here, is 327 square feet, totaling 981 square feet of total area. And then the limitation of the south facade or the alley facade here in that wedge, that purple wedge, is 723 square feet or 241 square feet across 3 floors. So that total site limitation factor equates to 2,691 square feet of lost FAR on the building. We're proposing 2,650 square feet on that 4th floor setback, 16.4 feet from the property line.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
I followed the math.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I follow the math.
Very creative display. I've never seen it done this
Yeah.
way.
So what's the setback for the building currently in the back, the rear setback?
The rear setback is approximately 24.2 feet.
Times, so how much have you gained in square footage by filling that in versus all this?
By filling in that back is 24 square feet, 25, I'm gonna-
24 by width?
by
like,
about
times
50,
width,
so,
Times 3?
yep.
You've gained that from doing the fill-in.
Yes,
Times-
but they are
times
permitted
4.
a 300% FAR. So if they knock the building down and they built it to the property lines, which they're permitted to do, and they could put 300 square feet on 3 floors, but that would not be a better design than what.
It would stick out
They're
beyond the
proposing.
boxwood property, so you'd have a building that projects beyond the boxwood building, our adjacent property. You'd have, which would then reduce the sidewalk.
You'd have a building that was touching the neighbors
Well,
on
I'm just saying, you're
all.
telling us you're losing that,
Well,
but you gained it with the fill into the backyard.
Oh, but, yeah, from our previous application, it was only, we gained 300 square feet from the fill-in of the parking from our previous application.
Times 4, is 1,200 square feet.
But the
Yeah,
building currently
I think it
is,
is easier to give a little bit of reference to what exists in this conversation, to not just compare it to the previous, because now we have a new set of drawings, and I think that's where
Yes.
some of
but-
these
but
comments are.
It should also be considered in relation to what is permitted, and what is
Certainly.
permitted is
Right.
300% FAR on 3 floors.
This is not a comparison from the previous scheme. This is a comparison versus as of right.
as of
Yes,
right, correct. Correct.
That makes it a little bit better.
Okay. And you also prepared a sightline exhibit A7. Can you explain what this demonstrates regarding the visibility of the fourth floor from the public right-of-way?
So I'm going to first start with the rendering because that actually depicts, do you mind putting this up really fast? It depicts exactly what you would see from the street. So we took this rendering from the opposite side of the property, and you'll get a glimpse of just that slight cornice on the top. We wanted to show the angle because we want to show the architectural style down the building. But if you're walking down Beechwood opposite, on the opposite side of the sidewalk, you would only see approximately 2 feet of that building across the top.
And you would see it on the side, but because it's now the same architecture, it
Yes,
blends in.
that was the other reason why we wanted to stick with that similar architectural style, is that it would blend with the existing building better. So our line of sight diagram, and I'll come back to this exhibit now. Our line of sight diagram A301, and I'll mark that as exhibit A7. Shows a person 68 feet away, about my height with a line of sight. That would give you the top 2 feet of the building.
So I have a question about that, because watching the video over the weekend and being out there this morning and now seeing this picture again, that exhibit and the one at the previous hearing, was that not intended to show the view of a pedestrian? Because my reaction was that that rendering looks like I'm a very tall pedestrian, if I'm a pedestrian.
Well,
Yeah.
it's me. It's a person of my height, so
But I mean-
6 feet.
But I mean, what was that, the rendering, was that the intent to show a pedestrian across the street?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The rendering is exhibiting from the 6 foot eye level height,
From 6 foot eye
Yep.
level, okay. Okay. And the same with this,
and the same with this one. Yes.
Okay.
I know it's a different reference for different people, but I feel like it gives you a different angle and a higher projection line. So the shorter you are, the less building you'll see.
And is 68 feet the distance from the building facade to the other building facade directly opposite on
Yes.
Beechwood?
So
Whatever.
we went from the face of the building line.
Yeah.
Yep, so we went from the face of the building line all the way. This person's about 4 feet away from the other building. They're not going to walk,
Okay.
if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
walking down the sidewalk,
Okay.
you're not going to be right on that building.
Okay.
Perfect. And based upon all the revisions that have been incorporated into the plans, including the preservation of the existing facades, the reduction in building bulk, the increased setback, and the revised design of the fourth floor addition, can you explain why you believe the proposed design is appropriate for the property and consistent with the character of the historic district?
Yes, I guess my first statement would be, we met with the Historic Preservation after we had completed this redesign, and we felt that they were supportive of us maintaining the facade and keeping it. I know they had a few comments in their letter about mullions and divided light, and I'll address that in a few, but by keeping that facade, it meets the intention of the Historic Preservation. It meets the intention of the CRBD district and the Historic District. So we maintain the architectural style, the features, the vertical articulation, that horizontal articulation. I think the painting scheme, or the paint scheme, accentuates some of those features, so it's not just a bland facade as it exists today as well. And then from the historic preservation side, I know they had asked or inquired about divided lights. Divided light, in our opinion, is more intended for residential application. This is intended for an office use, so we want to give them as much of a clear picture window as possible, so that if we were doing this as an adaptive reuse for residential, we would clearly do a divided light window in this application. When we met with them also, they had mentioned doing rectangular windows on the fourth floor and making that larger openings, but as we had discussed with them, we said that the arch top, due to just the hierarchy of architecture, that putting a rectangular window over that arch top just did not seem like the right architectural element and design for the building. That continuation of that arch top on that fourth floor was the right architectural answer to meet that Federalist and colonial style.
Perfect. I don't have any other questions.
Board experts, what questions do you have for this witness?
I feel like you went through a lot on my memo. So,
Okay.
You got rid of the tandem parking. I had address that. I was curious about what was going on with the rooftop units. You had that screened, and you explained why they were all grouped together there. The garbage, you said, did you say it's just on either side? There's
Yes, so it would be open on the alley side. They're 96-gallon containers, so it'd be a rolling container. We calculated that it would be 4 containers per day on a daily pickup, so 2 would be refuse and 2 would be recycling.
And daily pickup, you said, right?
Correct. And that's how the CRB district operates today.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any additional.
One comment you had was about the sidewalk transition. So our sidewalk will maintain existing stormwater flow. We want to make sure that it's positive flow towards the curb line as it exists today.
Have you changed anything about the way that you're constructing this?
Yes, this one took some ingenuity and thought. So we're going to do a timber construction, heavy timber construction, so we can actually go in and, because the walls are not even, steel construction is going to be very difficult to try and repurpose that facade. So heavy timber construction was determined as the best means and methods in style of construction. To be determined on how we construct it, but the way we envision it and we'll work with the contractor is to insert that heavy timber construction, then brace the facade from the inside as it exists today, and then remove that floor, because that floor is bearing inside the masonry wall. It's an exterior load-bearing masonry wall. So we're going to get that timber construction built inside. We're going to brace that floor and that wall, and then we're going to remove the old floor so that we can build this in shore as we're constructing. So the primary structure will act as shoring as we're building.
How about pedestrian accessibility outside as this is being constructed? I mean,
Yes, we have, and I can go to our site plan. So our drawing SP, I believe 302, I gotta find the right angle to pick this over. 302 shows there will be a time where we will have to do a sidewalk bridge to protect pedestrians and maintain sidewalk access. There will be also points where that sidewalk will need to be closed for certain portions of the construction, but the intention is to try and maintain thoroughfare as we did with 475. There were times that we had to close it, and then there were times that the majority of the construction time it was open.
so would you be willing to submit a pedestrian detour plan?
Yes, so
Further
that's,
beforehand?
yep, so we'll work with the police department, and we will work with the building department to do pedestrian detour plans, site plans, and maintenance of traffic plans as necessary.
I think that's all I had.
Ed? Chairman, thank you. A few questions. As was just mentioned regarding the sidewalk area, we had a question, it wasn't necessarily identified in our report, but I was thinking about the sidewalk. Do you see any utility improvements and replacement of the sidewalk necessary along the streetscape?
There will be replacement of the sidewalk.
Okay, so you'll replace it in kind?
Yes,
So
that's correct.
In accordance with the standards that are out?
Yep, there's portions that will have to be cut up and removed as a result of just general construction, setting the floor elevations, and then also the resloping of that sidewalk to our accessible entrance points. So I can actually show you what the scope is on SB 101.
The board.
So if you look at drawing SP 101, detail number 1, there's a hatched area that we expect that portion of the sidewalk to be replaced. So it will end up having to either tooth into that existing sidewalk, but we want to match the city standards there.
And that's the hatched area you're talking about on the property?
Yep,
Or-
so it goes beyond the
Okay.
property because we'll have to rework some of that slope and rework that sidewalk to maintain accessibility.
I see that now. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Regarding the dumpster enclosure areas, I think you just identified that you did an analysis to make sure there's enough trash area for the rest of the building?
Correct, so that's on drawing SP 401.
401?
There's a trash calculation or refuse calculation in the top right corner, which has been revised since our previous application due to the area of the building.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the architectural rendering that you provided from the street view, The side elevation of the building, the alleyway itself, is there any need to differentiate the fourth floor from the third floor? Is there any benefit in doing so from the design standards guidelines? It talks about breaking of horizontal or vertical elements. I know, I don't want to cross over with the historic commission, but at the same time, is that something you would have an opinion about?
Yes, we wanted to maintain the third floor. Again, changing the spacing of the windows and the style of the windows would have changed the hierarchy of architecture. So that arch top window on top of an arch top is what you would see in the colonial or federalist style.
Okay,
And
any reason
then-
to have like a cornice or a band that would break?
It doesn't exist today, so we wanted to maintain the existing. Right now, the current facade actually steps past the chimney and drops low. I can actually indicate that line on drawing A201. I'm sorry, 202.
My only reason why I identify that is because of the view down the alleyway of how you can't see it.
Understood. So right now, the building continues on a straight line here. There's a slight chimney,
I see.
and then it continues there as it drops down because this roof slopes in one direction to the rear of the building. And so that's the existing outline of the building there on that line.
And so that would also be interrupting the window pattern? to
Correct,
that fourth floor?
correct. And so as you can see, our addition has similar spacing in vertical positive solid void ratio as what the existing architecture does. And then we repeated that on the fourth floor to maintain similar architectural style.
Okay, thank you. You indicated the signage will conform with the regulations?
That's
And
correct.
future signage? Okay. You went over the FAR calculation, thank you. Just to summarize the variances again, you touched on the building height variance, that's a D6 variance. The maximum number of stories as well, you're at 4 stories, whereas 3 stories are permitted. The maximum appurtenance height, that's also another variance or relief you're requesting, correct?
That's correct.
And then also maximum light fixture height due to the fact that you have exterior lighting on that upper floor?
That's correct.
Okay. And then maximum illumination of the lot lines, it's really down to, I guess, 0.1 foot candles?
Well, we actually have 0.5 maximum at the property line because we want to
0.5.
maintain egress illumination at that back, because if, I will actually refer you to my architectural plan. And so drawing A102, I'll show you why we are requesting that variance. So drawing A102, we have a front entrance here for the retail space. Due to the depth of the retail space, subject to occupancy, they may need a second means of egress, which would then have to egress through the back of the building here. And then all office corridors or office features in 4 stories or 3 stories or more require 2 means of egress. So we have an egress discharge off the back. And during the nighttime hours, we want to make sure that that pathway along the back property line or that rear property line is illuminated.
And that illumination's occurring at ground level?
Correct.
And it's really just illuminating the back alleyway?
That's correct.
You may have covered this in the prior testimony or prior hearing. What is intended for that upper outdoor space? Are there any events planned or any planned utilization of that, or is that really just an amenity space for the office?
It's intended as an amenity space for the office user. The hope would be it's a single office user that can utilize that space as one, subject to how this building gets leased. But it's intended as the office use.
Any outdoor speakers anticipated?
No.
That space? Okay, thank you. There was an application where it was an upper terrace with outdoor
Understood.
speakers. That's
Yep.
why I touched on it, so, thank you. No
I
further
believe
questions.
in our previous testimony, we did put hours or kind of a time
Hours of
on that.
utilization, so you're
Correct.
stipulating for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Board members, what questions do you have for this witness? Mr. Kern?
Thanks. Appreciate the reduction in the height variance or the request for the height variance from the last presentation, but, and I'm not sure if I heard it yet or not, but what are the special reasons that exist for us to grant the variance? Because it's a D variance, and then maybe touch on the positive criteria for, that'll further the purpose for the municipal land use law.
So we do have the planner testifying next.
Okay.
I don't know he can answer that
That'd be
question
great.
for you, yep.
Thank you.
Great. Tom?
Yeah, so there was a lot of testimony at the last session by Nick, and I won't even try to pronounce his last name.
Septers.
Thank you.
Yes.
He didn't use the word impossible, but it came close saying it would be impossible to preserve the facade, okay? So, you use words which make me think, is it more accurate to say you're preserving or replacing but having it look similar, or is it a mix?
The intent is to preserve it, but we will have to replace certain elements of it if they are found to be damaged. The reason why that testimony was put on the record is because it will be very difficult to do. And through lots of conferring with our client, he has agreed to undergo that challenge with us.
Okay, so it'll be a mix of preserving the material that's there as well as some new material.
There may be some replacement material in kind. It depends on what, again, there's layers of paint there that we have not chipped away yet. We don't know if the cornices are in great shape on its entire length, so there may be portions that have to be replaced in kind.
So the cracks that you see now will no longer be there?
The intention is to make those all disappear.
Okay. And the pedestrian bridge, that was mentioned last time, and you mentioned again today. Pedestrian bridge, is that really more, do you mean like a covered sidewalk? Is that what that really means?
Correct, like you would see in New York City,
Okay.
where you would just have a temporary sidewalk cover to protect from falling material or construction loading, things like that.
Okay. And I guess this is kind of a question for Ed as well. The FAR calculation obviously leaves, teeny tiny margin for error. Ed, are you confident in their numbers, and what happens if they're off when they actually start working?
If they're off, they would be back before this board. The testimony is being provided, the evidence is being provided to the board as to their calculations. We've checked the numbers, we agree with the numbers, but yeah, it is right at the limit.
Yeah.
So if there's any deviation, there needs to be a new application made,
Okay.
unfortunately. So 1% is a very, very small margin.
It's
Yeah.
41 square feet.
Yeah.
41 square feet.
Good luck. Okay, that's all I have.
The one benefit is we have the limits of the existing building facade to hold us in check.
Okay.
Miriam?
So I have a couple, but just to piggyback off of that, is there, just to have some checks and balances, is there, in this kind of situation, is there any precedent for sort of setting measurements like in the field before you start, just to make, it's really easy to bump the wall 6 inches and then all of a sudden 6 inches by 46 feet, 3 feet up. Is there a way to put in a condition that's going to make it easier for us to know if, and maybe Ed has some suggestions so that if if they have to come back, or as opposed to, finding out after the building's constructed?
Right.
So.
Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, usually they require a foundation inspection.
There's a foundation inspection, and we'll also pin the corners of the building and survey it and get the limits of the building before we construct it.
Okay.
Right, so that
And-
verifies the ultimate envelope of the
Okay,
building.
so there will be, maybe, I don't know if that has to be, I don't know who in the city is going to know how close this is, whether that has to be like, after the foundation is measured, you have to resubmit that you're at 299 or less, or something like that, if that's a stipulation, but that's a question or something, maybe Andy can help with that. So two other questions, one might be for Marie. The first one, because of the stormwater, since they're adding more than 300 square feet, do they have to manage their own stormwater, or is it,
I think,
because it's,
I don't think there's any increase in lot coverage.
There's
No,
no
there's
increase
no
in lot
increase in lot
coverage.
coverage.
okay, it's just because you're taking away the parking and making it building, it doesn't make a difference?
Well, actually, because we're managing it on the roof and we're diverting it through roof drains rather than sheet flow through the back parking area, it will actually be better managed through that system.
Okay, and then my second question is also related to that note on SP 201 that says, current stormwater discharge from both adjacent structures shall be discontinued. Owners shall, 6 months prior to commencement of construction, inform adjacent property owners to remove discharge and to prohibit future stormwater flow onto the subject property. So I'm a little confused by that. It looks like you're planning to manage it with a pipe, but here it says you're not, so I'm just, one, is there some kind of easement or agreement that requires you to manage the stormwater? And two, what does this mean if you know, compared to the pipe that's shown on the
So
drawing?
the current stormwater management, there is no easement in place right now for stormwater, but their current, our adjoining properties actually discharge at grade and flow by sheet flow across the parking lot or continue along that rear facade of the building and then go to an underground pipe to that catch basin. So we're proposing to redirect that, discontinuing the existing system and then redirect that stormwater through pipes across our property.
Okay. Can that note be updated to say that you will,
Absolutely.
it just, because I think that maybe
We
leaves
can
some.
provide clarification for Marie on our,
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because all of a sudden when you started saying it, I'm like, oh, that was something I thought about.
Mhm.
Like, it sounded like when we read that you were just gonna discontinue it, to heck with the neighbor and where
No,
to put
yeah.
it. So you're gonna disconnect it and you're gonna redirect it.
and we're going to redirect it, correct. I think Mark would be very
Yeah.
upset if we disconnected it
Yeah.
and left his neighbors abandoned.
It could also be a problem for your building itself,
Correct.
to have it,
Correct.
everything come towards it. So that was one. And then the last question I have is just going back to Ed's comment about putting some kind of cornice between the third and fourth floor, some kind of separation. I see what you're saying about the building, sort of the jog, yeah, if you can go back to that.
Yep,
other-
I'll get you the side elevation,
Um,
A202.
I guess my question is there a place to add something sort of decorative in there? If I'm looking at it straight across, like anything, you know, maybe something that looks like a sill under the fourth floor windows, something that gives it a little distinction to break up the floor to the, you know, the point that Ed made. I mean,
Shouldn't
it
there be
seems
a
like it seems
hierarchy
like
between the main Beechwood facade and the alley facade?
Yes, that's what I was going to say, is that I think if we wrap this cornice around, it will take away from the Beechwood facade, and it would actually accentuate that fourth floor, where right now it blends in vertically as part of the field of that side alley.
Okay.
So if we had that horizontal kind of break here, I believe that this would look like a cap on the building rather than part of the building.
Okay, thank you.
David?
This may be a better question for the planner, but I'll ask it anyway. Deferred if it is. As you were thinking about this redesign, did you look into the prevalence of structures in the area that are 4 or more stories?
Yes, and the planner has an exhibit and will testify to that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Excellent.
Just a question for
Jay.
you with rear yard setback. It's 5-ish feet,
Mhm.
right?
5 feet minimum.
That meets zoning code with the, and no issues with lot line windows or anything like that?
That's
on
correct.
your
There are
properties?
limitations. I believe it's 20% of the facade can be glazing. And we
How
are
does this
under
impact your
20.
neighbors that have existing
yes.
windows in that?
In the
property?
analysis of those, all the properties were less than 20%.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Um,
Are you talking about the rear
Yes.
neighbors?
So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Both on the, I guess it would be on the alley side as well as the north side.
so I'll go to SP 101. So there are windows on our adjoining property
Yeah.
here, and then there's a window here, and we're proposing a few rear windows as well. That window to solid ratio can exceed 20% with the 5-foot setback. So we are under that calculation.
All right. Any other, Don, go ahead.
Are there any exterior sprinklers on that wall?
No, it's a fully sprinklered building though, within. And we've done deluge systems on facades if necessary, but we would defer to the fire subcode to advise us on that if he requires it. But again, it meets the building code standards for setbacks.
All right. Any questions only? Oh, go
You
ahead.
said there's 5 units. Where are the 5 units? Is it like retail 1 and then each?
Yes, so
Just got that?
I'll walk through each of the floors really fast. So that I'll start with drawing A102, which is our ground floor. So we have the retail as number 1. We have the office lobby or first floor common area as 2. We want to keep those zones separate. And then there's 3 floors. So we have 1 unit for the second floor, 1 unit for the third floor, and 1 unit for the fourth floor,
Okay, thanks.
which would be
The
5.
second one on the first, on the
Yes.
ground level is what confused me. Thank
I
you.
don't, because of hours of operation, we don't want to have retail and office commingle on their units.
Do we have questions? Questions only from the public? No? Okay, next witness, Hillary.
Paul Greigel.
And Mr. Greigel, correct me if I'm wrong, we did not swear you in at the last
Not in
meeting,
this
right?
application.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand, do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, last name.
Yes, good evening, Paul Greigel, G-R-Y-G-I-E-L, professional planner.
Thank you. And I'll note for the record that you've appeared before our board a number of times, including very recently. Any changes to your credentials since the last time you were here?
Not that I'm aware of. My license is still current. I renewed it recently.
Great. I imagine the board would like to accept you back once again.
Absolutely, welcome.
you.
Please proceed.
If you could just quickly go through the steps you took to prepare for your testimony before you get into your presentation.
Yes, I've been active in the application in many discussions with the project team regarding the proposed design as it's evolved. I visited the site and surrounding area on multiple occasions, reviewed the city's master plan and zoning ordinance, as well as historic district regulations, the CRBD master plan, and essentially became very familiar with the site, surrounding area, the application, and the variance relief that's requested.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So from there, just
Yep,
like
you
to
can-
continue.
Yep.
Great. I don't want to belabor the discussion of the site and surrounding area, but some key factors with regard to the property. We're dealing with a rather small infill site. The lot area is only 4,100 square feet, but we have an existing building that the applicant is now seeking to essentially restore and expand slightly, as discussed by the prior witness. With regard to the building, it's older. It's not a historic landmark per se, but it's in an historic district. As we've heard, there's been some issues that make reuse and redevelopment of it challenging. The context, as the board's well aware, is a mixed-use setting with regard to existing land uses in the area consistent with the CRBD zoning, which allows all kinds of downtown uses, from retail to offices, restaurants, residential, personal services, et cetera. So the application, essentially, we've highlighted some factors right at the outset. Ms. Wills mentioned them, that compared to what you've seen previously and what was proposed, reductions in the overall height, the appurtenance height, as well as the building-mounted lights we just heard about. These are all variances that are still requested, but are less in terms of the amount we're requesting. The application is also reducing building coverage, as we heard, and increasing setbacks to neighboring properties, particularly to the rear, and also maintaining the front setback. So that's the context for what we're requesting. In terms of the zoning, the CRBD, is very relatively lenient in terms of setbacks and other standards. There are standards such as FAR, which we do meet. We heard it's relatively close. But I do think it's important to remember the context of if this application were to essentially remove the building and start from scratch, there's a certain limit that we'd have to comply with. We do in terms of area. We do not in terms of height, but I think that Exhibit A7 was the,
It would be A8.
well, before we get to,
Oh,
I'm sorry, the one that showed the,
Oh, yes, that's A7, yes.
yes, that essentially where we were,
Sorry,
the limitations,
A6.
no,
A6.
yes, A6.
Yes.
Essentially, the one that we referred to, by maintaining the front setback, for example, we have issues, we could push out to these lot line, but that would, give us extra space, but would be inconsistent with what's out there today, as well as in the rear, providing, not having to provide the 5-foot setback. Those types of things all add up to essentially shift the floor area from where, different locations up onto that 4th floor. So I'll get into the details of that momentarily. We already listed out the variances. There was a question from Mr. Snikas. He went through them. We agree with the list that was cited with regard to the height variances and the other variances. So the first one that's being sought, and I guess maybe most important in terms of hierarchy from the municipal land use law, is the height variance. Since it's more than 10 feet or 10% over what's permitted, we are requesting a D6 height variance. And again, for the record, it's 42 feet permitted in the zone, 52 feet proposed on the current proposal. We also have the second height standard of a maximum of 50 feet with appurtenant structures. In this case, it's 54.7. Both reductions from the prior request, but again, over the maximums permitted. With regard to the height variance, some things to note up front. The proofs, there's a question already from one of the board members regarding special reasons. Case law has set forth the standard, the burden of proof being somewhat less for this type of variance than for a straight use variance. In other words, it was a case called Grasso v. Spring Lake Heights, which said that when dealing with height, you need to essentially not offend the purposes of the zoning ordinance. You'll recognize that building height standards are intended to be taken in context, that you still are providing adequate light, air, and open space and promoting a desirable visual environment. So in other words, it's not just a straight number we're dealing with, or in this case, numbers, but how they fit in with the surroundings next door, nearby, and the broader area. I do think in this case, up front, we are promoting light, air, and open space, as we just discussed, by providing more than adequate space to the rear for the neighboring property, as well as up on the fourth floor. The fourth floor we're seeking has a rather substantial setback and step back from the front facade of the building. And really, the overall, I think, the way to consider this, I would suggest to the board, is the overall preservation and rehabilitation of the building in this historic district drives the desire to have the additional partial story on the fourth floor. So some of the objectives as far as the positive criteria is concerned, one is, just like the prior application, we are rehabilitating, or in this case, replacing essentially the majority of the existing building, which has numerous issues today. I won't rehash all of them, but in terms of, there were some, certainly ADA compliance is a major one. Right now, the building is not accessible, so the applicant's proposing to meet all current standards with regard to that, as well as fire codes, all of their building codes, while maintaining and improving the facade. We heard loud and clear from the Historic Preservation Commission, as well as the board and members of the public, about preservation of the facade being important. That said, we're also looking to be consistent with the CRBD zoning and the master plan for the area with regard to providing permitted uses, both office and retail, which will help bring activity to the downtown during the day. Essentially, the trade-off, though, is that these things take money, takes effort. As we heard, it's not going to be easy to do this, but the applicant is looking to preserve the facades and to maintain essentially what you see there today and make it better externally as well as internally to make it a usable building going forth. Just more generally with regard to the positive criteria, again, we mentioned the reduced setbacks and the reduced building coverage, the improved setbacks compared to what was previously requested. The architecture on the fourth floor, too, we has had some discussion about this. We do believe it makes sense to design it in the way it's currently proposed to make it actually less obtrusive. We have exhibits showing that from different locations. So I think for those reasons, we are addressing certain purposes of the municipal land use law. Purpose A is promoting the appropriate development in the CRBD zone. That's the general health, safety, and welfare. Summit seeks to have these types of uses, rehabilitation of existing structures in the downtown. Purpose C, promoting adequate light, air, and open space. Purpose G, providing sufficient space in appropriate locations for office and retail uses. Purpose I, promoting a desirable visual environment. And Purpose J, promoting the conservation of historic districts. And again, in this context, we're looking to address concerns that have been raised about historic district compliance. But as far as the context of the height, I think now we can turn to that. Those are some of the purposes of the land use law. In this context, we have this height that is more than is permitted, but in Summit and the CRBD and adjacent zones, we've identified, and I guess we can mark this now, Exhibit A8.
Yep.
This was prepared as a collaborative effort amongst our team, both through the client as well as the design professionals, our input as well, to identify buildings in the vicinity. We've identified 7 in the CRBD zone. So the exhibit shows a yellow boundary of the zone itself. But close by, I think it's important, even though, essentially if you're driving in or out of town, walking around, you don't know there's this line on the ground. So we also look at what's nearby. There's an additional 9 in immediately surrounding zones. So that's a total of 16 existing buildings in the vicinity that are greater than the 3-story height limit. And I would actually point out the CRBD master plan included a map similar to this that identified differences in height as well. Point being that, again, this is not a precedent-setting building just a short distance away. We've got the Bassett building. We have other buildings that are above the maximum height that's permitted.
And the massive building is 5 stories, right?
Yes. So it's shown,
Yep.
yeah, so 150-ish feet from the subject property, we have a 5-story building. It's actually rather, sizable in terms of its length too. It's not just a single storefront, but other ones in the vicinity. There are some, again, other 4-story buildings throughout here, going up to 6 and 7 stories. Recognizing it's different district, different type of use. But as you come into town from essentially the north, that direction, you do have some taller buildings. So I think that we're dealing with a context here where you have some buildings that exceed the height that's permitted, and it's not a substantial, deviation given the context here. Also, the exhibits we provided, I think, show that from the sidewalk, from neighboring properties, it's really not visible, the 4th story, or if it is, it's been essentially designed to be enhanced, integrated with the building as much as possible in terms of the overall appearance of the structure. We could go, I don't think we need to belabor the point of, we could go to the 300% FAR, but the limitations, I think, have been put on the record, unless you disagree. I think we've hit all of them pretty well, that essentially the balancing, of trying to maintain the setback, providing, not pushing out to the side property lines, that type of thing, limits the amount of space you can have on the lower 3 floors. So I think in summary, for the positive criteria, we're essentially taking the roughly 2,650 square feet that's on the top floor as proposed, is more than that is, could be built on the lower 3 floors through that exhibit that we showed, but we've essentially taken it, put it into one place and making it usable. With regard to the height, I would also note with the appurtenance height, we're only dealing with a very small area of just over 100 square feet, where you have above the roof, essentially on the 4th floor, that's for the ADA compliance for the elevator. So it's really minimal, it's not like we're proposing a large penthouse or something. It's not the overall 4th floor that accounts for that overall height above 54.7 feet. So in summary, I think the positive criteria are addressed for the D6 variance. With regard to the negative criteria, again, many of these points have already been made through my testimony and other testimony, but I don't believe there's substantial negative impacts on the surrounding area given the design of the building and its context. The step back on the 4th floor clearly, as shown on the exhibits, it helps make it less visible or intrusive at the street level or from surrounding properties. Clearly, the architecture has been designed as well to make sure that it's integrated as one building, not having a separate 4th story just sticking up on top. With regard to potential impacts on the master plan or zoning ordinance, Summit's done a lot of studies over the years, a lot of planning for downtown, for the CRBD. A number of master plan goals and objectives are addressed through this application, in my opinion. First, upgrading older buildings to capitalize on their architecturally significant character. That was a concern we heard. We believe the application takes a building that, has character now, but is over time has not been maintaining that existing character. We'll be restoring it to, what it was, and in fact enhancing it with some additional architectural treatments. The plan also talks about maintaining and encouraging mixed-use buildings with retail on the ground floor and office or residential on the upper floors, preserving historic features in existing buildings, and addressing ADA compliance, fire, and safety standards. With regard to the zoning, again, we recognize there's a height limit that we're exceeding, but I do believe that in this context, it's a very unique situation, and the balance of providing permitted uses, providing for improvements to this older building, providing for aesthetic improvements, all would not result in substantial negative impacts on the city's master plan or zoning ordinance. With regard to the other variances, the C variances, one is for the number of stories. I think the testimony provided with regard to the building height in feet is already, essentially the same. The 4th story, ties into that. The other C variances are just for the lighting. Again, I think we already had question and answer with regard to what the specifics are. The height of the lighting is really due to the height of the building, and having some on the terrace, having some lighting up there, as well as illumination at the property line for safe egress. So I think those variances can be granted under the C2 criteria, that the benefits of the lighting that's proposed outweigh any detriments, and those variances can be granted in accordance with that criteria without any substantial negative impacts on the master plan, zoning ordinance, or surrounding area. With that, I know I provided a lot of testimony, as well as I could go into more detail if you like. At this point, I can answer questions. So.
Any questions?
Great, thank you.
Board experts, what questions do you have for this witness?
I do not have any.
A few questions.
Sure.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. With regard to the, talk about under the negative criteria, when we deal with the building height and the number of stories.
Yes.
What is the purpose, if you could just identify typically from a planning standpoint, for a building height and number of stories limitation?
Right, it's to set the overall setting, context of a, in an area where you have sometimes lower heights generally. Here you have a 3-story limit. And the idea is with regard to light, air, and open space, not having, shadow impacts, not having buildings that stand out too much from other ones nearby. So I think in this case, we have a context where you have some taller buildings, and again, it's very limited, the height that we're proposing on a portion of the upper floor of the building.
Okay. Wouldn't it also characterize sort of the bulk or the ultimate mass of a structure?
Yes, so one way to do it, great question, FAR is sometimes included, sometimes it's not. In some ordinances, there's only a height standard and then setbacks or, coverage. In this case, there are actually no setback requirements, so the FAR is really the controlling feature for mass and density, if you will. So that's in this case, the height is not, I wouldn't say it's not important, but it's, it's not by taking, say, a 5-foot front setback, a 20-foot rear setback, side setbacks, and then having a height and setting a building envelope. Here, the envelope can be, the FAR is intended to be more flexible, to allow it to squeeze up, to be out in different directions.
Okay. It also goes towards establishing sort of the character of the area, correct?
The height
Character
does.
of that zone.
Yeah,
correct?
yes.
And the number of stories. And in
Yes.
your exhibit, you identified, I believe it was 7 properties within the CRBD
Correct.
zone, correct?
That are above the 3-story height limit.
Above
That's
the
correct.
3-story height. Does that reference sort of are you referencing that as sort of a established pattern, or that it's not unusual in the zone?
I don't think it's a pattern per se. I think it's more just the fact that these are, we're not coming in as the first, building to exceed the height limit. That you have some that are, generally in some cases pretty, been around some time. These are not generally newer buildings that are, have that height.
When you look at the impact of the negative criteria as well, I know I didn't hear a discussion about shadow studies. I'm not necessarily convinced that maybe one is necessary. But if you can talk about this property and any potential impacts from a shadow perspective. I know you're not an architect, but
Yes.
yet that's sort of a feature that we look at in balancing the negative impacts.
Right, so there are a couple mitigating factors here. One is that you have the alleyway next door, so even though the zone does not require setbacks from adjacent buildings, we have some space in between, so by its very, the layout right off the bat has a little extra space next to it.
And that's right to the south.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And then the overall height, again, 14.7 foot, if I have it right, the top floor step back from the front.
16.
16 from the property line. Sorry, so I just went right in the middle there. So 12 and change up at the top left. So in other words, you don't have a building wall that's going up straight 4 stories on the street. It goes up, step back a bit from the street line to start with, 3 stories, and then goes back 12 feet or so, just over 12 feet, and then goes up to the 4th story. So that's what the exhibit with regard to the sight line shows, is that if you're looking at a building, again, at an angle, it's kind of, you don't really see the 4th floor from the front.
Okay. The rooftop appurtenances, they are, I think you had indicated they're about 100 square feet?
That's my understanding from reviewing the plans. It's 2.7
Is that more
feet
of
high.
the overrun for the elevator? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's exactly right,
Okay.
yes. So this is not a bunch of different, like a penthouse or other structures. It's literally just to make it ADA accessible building. That's
Okay,
correct.
but yet all the other mechanicals that may be on the roof will comply. I'm sorry if I didn't ask that of the architect.
My understanding is the only additional is the 100 square feet for the overrun, so I
Okay.
believe they do. That's.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Board, what questions do you have for this witness? Don?
So you used quite a number of buildings in the central business district. I would disallow the other buildings because they're different zones.
Sure.
So I think it's multifamily tower. And most of those buildings were, with the exception of the one on DeForest and the one behind it, were built many, many years ago. One burned to the ground, one was renovated. So those are kind of different stories. Bassett Building, when was it built, do you know? 20s, 30s? Zoning
Looking at
probably
it,
didn't
I think
exist.
it's 100-ish years old.
Were you involved in the 475 Springfield Avenue project?
My former partner, who's retired now, Paul Phillips.
So this
was.
is basically the same type of
Yes.
setup for the buildings, right?
Yeah, our firm has been involved. I was familiar with that, assisted with that. I didn't provide the testimony myself on the original
I would say
application.
it's similar. It's
Yeah.
not-
So explain to me again why you need a fourth floor. Would the building still meet the master plan requirements with 3 floors?
Well, there's different so for a couple
Would it meet,
things, there's
would
no-
it meet the zoning? Would it
So-
meet the master plans?
So the master plan, that's the interesting thing, is planning is taking a lot of different competing objectives and balancing them. So I would say, you used the word requirements. Master plans obviously don't set requirements, but they do have objectives such as economic development, providing for uses that will have vitality throughout the day and night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you want mix of uses. The office actually brings more people to the area during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, there's historic preservation. Theoretically, again, the applicant could come in and say, just demolish the building, build straight to the property lines. So, not trying to be evasive, but I'm trying to just say that as a planner, you have to take these different factors, into consideration. You also, if you want to preserve an older building and just leave it as is, there was discussion from the applicant that, what would be the point to go through this effort and then 20 years, first of all, not bring it up to ADA compliance, not bring it up to codes, leaving the building the way it is wouldn't essentially be consistent with the overall planning for the downtown. Now, could we comply with the height? Sure, but again, it would involve pushing the building closer to, we can fit all the square footage essentially in a 3-story building if you pushed back, you push forward, you push sideways.
So I guess what I'm looking for, would it be economically viable to renovate the building, but only keep it 3 stories? Do what you're doing, but eliminate the 4th story.
Well, to renovate, I can't speak to, I think there was testimony regarding renovation, to essentially take out the interior and to,
No, but I mean, end up with a building like in that picture, but without the 4th floor. Would it still meet the master plan intent? Would it be, maybe it
But
wouldn't?
that's not what's being proposed, and that's not what the
Well,
applicant is
what
looking to
you're
do.
pushing at is, that there's so many other buildings here, those are just oddballs. They just happen to be built recently.
I think that the purpose of the exhibit is just to show the context and that there are other buildings. So this would not be an outlier building where this is the only one that would be 4 stories and greater.
Right, and what I'm trying to establish is that the zoning is 3 stories. And I know that was a fight many years ago when somebody wanted to build a 5-story building.
Sure.
And we said, we decided on 3. So if we continue, and this, I'm just speaking here, not necessarily to your client. I picture this board in 10 years showing many more 4-story buildings and 5-story buildings. My point is, why can't we just stay at the height, meet the requirements, stay at the 3 stories, do what you're doing, and eliminate that 4th floor? We didn't talk, we don't show pictures of what that 100-foot overrun for the elevator looks like from neighboring properties?
Because you can't see it.
From neighboring properties? From the 5-story building, I can't see it?
I guess if you're,
It said it's only 150 feet away.
5-story building, you would see it,
Yeah,
yes.
you're only 150 feet away, so.
But Don, maybe it's worth asking the architect if you're bringing this building up to fire code, right, which requires modern fire stairs, and you're bringing it up to ADA code, which requires an elevator. That loss of floor area.
True.
Does that make a 3-story
Viable.
modernization even viable?
Good
I
point.
think that's
I didn't
probably
think
how
that
you
way.
would want to ask the question.
Thank you for correcting me there. I didn't think about that.
appreciate it. I agree with what the chairman said, but no, that's honestly, it's the trade-offs that need to be made, and I think we're really, the client's certainly working very hard to,
Oh, yeah.
as
I
you're aware,
commend it.
yes.
This
yes.
is a great design.
Right.
I'm just worried about the 4th floor.
Right. And I will note, just with regard to the exhibit, we were well aware of the distinction between the zones, but we thought, as a planner, it's important to show them, but we want to make sure the line is there too for the CRB. So we're not trying to claim credit for buildings outside the area, but just, again, to a layperson that doesn't know what the difference is between zoning districts, you have taller buildings nearby. That was more the intent behind that.
Can I ask a follow-up along those lines? So you made reference before to improvements in ADA accessibility, and fire code compliance, and all those things that go with the modernization. And certainly, they apply to a building that was built in, 1893, I think was the date. Wouldn't those be applicable to a good portion of the buildings in the CRBD? Given
That's
the age?
deficient with regard to those requirements, or?
Just with regard to those improvements from a modernization, I imagine a lot of these older buildings, ADA accessibility is hit or miss at best. And fire code compliance, again, these probably aren't fully sprinklered buildings everywhere, all that stuff.
There's not.
Right. So I guess to the point Mr. Nelson is making, in the instant case, sure, you can use it as a justification for exceeding the height in the master plan, but then we get another application and another application, and that chart has a lot more green numbers on it in those subsequent applications. So,
I
you know,
think
how do we
this
balance
is-
that as a board?
This is a unique case because of the preservation of the building. I mean, a lot of other buildings in the CRBD could just be demolished. Maybe they don't have the same historic significance. And then again, you would be able to put it on the 3 floors. But because they're preserving the facade and they're keeping the walls where they are and they're not encroaching on different setbacks and things like that, that's the need for this particular project, which is different than, say, another project that might come before you.
Can you demo this as of right?
Yes.
Okay, so is what you're positing before the board, that you're rendering a benefit to the city through this preservation, therefore we should give you the height variance? Is that essentially the crux of the argument?
I would say that if you balance the way that this project is proposed, it is better planning for the city because it's preserving a building. And so a trade-off might be, because they're willing to preserve and maintain certain setbacks and provide certain benefits to neighbors, that putting a small portion of the FAR on the 4th floor makes better sense.
So as we think about that, just given the age of buildings in the CRBD, do you have any sense of what proportion of the buildings in the CRBD one could apply that argument to?
Well, again, if that's the case, they would have to come before this board and make that argument.
Yeah,
I just want to get a
I
sense
don't
of
know
what
that
we're
we're
saying.
relevant.
setting a
Yeah.
precedent here. This could be the only site in the entire district that is not built to the property line and has its neighbor encroaching on its site. I mean, we don't know,
Yeah.
so if someone else has those exact parameters and they come before us, we can evaluate them then, but I don't know that we're setting any kind of precedent. They're arguing based on the very specific limitations that they have for this site only.
Correct.
Yes. I would just note one other factor is that even if you internally renovate this, I think Mr. Yeager said this at the first hearing, you would not get the same type of tenant if you just take what you have there now and just try to fix up and clean it up. It's the thorough overhaul is what will get you, more desirable space that'll be longer lasting and beneficial, to get tenants in the downtown that, again, we didn't even mention this with regard to parking, et cetera, right near the train station with parking all around in a setting that is desirable for that type of use. So I think it's holistically a real benefit economic development wise to have that with new retail space, new office space on the upper floors as well.
I have 3
Miriam, go
questions.
ahead.
I'll try to make them quick, but one is regarding the ADA accessibility and the sprinklers. Am I correct in saying that this is really not, shouldn't really be a consideration, because if you demolish the building and you build a new building, you're going to have to be ADA compliant, you're going to have sprinklers. This is really not, that's not, to me, really a positive criteria of this building, because I feel that of the level of renovation, even if you were to renovate this building, you would be required to make those kind of modifications based on the level of work that's happening here. Would you say that compliance would apply to a new building as well?
A new building would have to comply, so
Yeah.
with regard to rehabilitation of the existing, because that's the other alternative here, the rehab subcode. I'm not the architect, so I can't answer it specifically. I think there's some, I wouldn't call it wiggle room, I guess, to leave the existing setup, if you will, if you're only rehabilitating it. But, a new building certainly would be, but again, the new building then would be able to push, out to the maximum building envelope and be designed differently. But again, it's not the application we're seeking. We're just
Right.
comparing to
But
what you could
typically,
build.
those kind of, even homeowners have to bring things up to code when they're not, if they're doing the scale of renovation. So that was just a separate question. One is about the shadows, which I know you're not the architect, maybe the architect, but you mentioned the shadows, so I'm going to, one thing that I wanted to ask about, the facade of the building faces west, correct?
The front facade faces
yeah.
west, yeah.
So, where do you think that the extra shadow is going to cast? At the end of the day, sun rises in the east, sets in the west, that extra story. No one really talked about that in terms of impact. That's going to go further down, I guess, the alley, right? The shadow behind the building?
I would ask if the architect could
Yeah.
answer that question for you.
Okay. I feel like we should just because the shadows were brought up, I feel like we should,
Sure.
So, I will bring up SP 101 because that's probably going to give you the best orientation of the building. So you're correct. The Beechwood facade faces the west. We have the sun pattern would be along the south here. So your shadow would be cast starting in the morning, going across Beechwood Road, but because of that setback, it will cast a shadow on the terrace. So it will cast a shadow upon itself. As it comes across the site, you'll have a slight shadow onto the roof of his northern property. And as you continue about midday, and this is only during the winter, you'll have a low sun that then casts a greater shadow onto the roof of the northern property. As the sun sets, you'll cast a shadow into our previously parking area and onto this building to the east of us that currently has a shadow on it. So I don't think there will be a negative impact on the shadows from the property.
and how many stories is the building behind you?
It's a two-story.
Okay, thank you. And then,
And the one to the north is a three-story building.
okay. So you don't envision any impact from the
I-
shadows?
No, it will
Okay.
not exceed the building limits of what's existing.
There's already a three-story building
Correct.
casting a shadow there, so, okay. And then the last question I had, because, and maybe Mr. Ball has this, but there was some discussion about noise and when the lights would be used and, the no speakers. I don't know if that should be a condition. But also, I don't remember, I'm sorry, I didn't write it in my notes from the last meeting. What were the stipulations about the hours of use for the outside? That terrace? Because I think there are apartments in some of the buildings, right, surrounding those office buildings. Some of the top stories are apartments, so just from a residential, impact potentially. I don't see it impacting businesses at night.
So
but-
we had said the hours of operation for the rooftop, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is what has been standard for the other rooftop amenities in the CRBD.
Okay. And then the lights would be off at 10 p.m.?
Yes.
Yeah. And no speakers? Like,
No
could we-
speakers.
So lights off and no speakers, can we make those just conditions? Yeah.
I would imagine the applicants would accept those as conditions.
Yes.
And do you foresee any type of picnic tables, patio umbrellas, anything like that out there?
I would say standard, as if you look at the other rooftop amenities in the CRBD, they do have those things, but as Mr. Yeager had testified to, and he can come back up and testify to it, they're all secured. So
But they
they're
would
not
be
gonna blow
visible.
around and they're not gonna fly around.
But they'll be visible from the street?
Bring up our line of sight diagram. So there's a parapet
Mhm.
on the fourth floor, so that will go up to 42 inches as our fall protection. So the tables and chairs would not be visible, but if they had standing umbrellas, they potentially could have impact on the line of sight if they were held tight to the front of the property. So you may catch the glimpse of color on that top.
And as long as you're back up. Where's the HVAC systems?
The HVAC systems are back
So is
here.
that included in that 100 square feet for the elevator, or is that additional?
The HVAC does not count as an appurtenance. It's a piece of equipment that would have to be screened.
So it's gonna, but visually, it looks like a square box on top of the roof?
Correct, correct. But it would be screened in compliance with the
And
ordinance.
how high would that be?
About 4 feet.
And to get to that, is there stairs, ladder?
There will have to be a roof hatch ladder off of one of the egress stairs, either to the north or the south.
What other questions? Tom?
Yeah, I'd just like to piggyback on the concerns expressed by Mr. Nelson and Mr. Mullen about the four-story aspect of this. So I maybe have a narrower definition than Mr. Greikel's diagram. I today walked an area roughly bordered by Maple, Springfield, Summit, and Union Place. And I noticed the Bassett Building, obviously, and I don't know if that has a name, but there's a 4-story building on Summit Avenue, kind of across the street from the barber shop, and I don't know what else. But the Bassett Building and that other 4-story building, I don't know when they were built, I don't know what the zoning rules were then about stories, but they're certainly both old buildings. And walking on Beechwood and especially Union Place, but Summit Avenue too, there are a lot of 1- and 2-story buildings. So, and again, so I'm going to get to a question, but I mean, what I'm trying to get at is my concern about, the city at some point said 3 stories is what we want to limit it to. And there are in fact a lot of 1- and 2-story buildings. And in the immediate vicinity of the applicant, this would be the only force. I mean, I would argue that Bassett Building faces on Summit Avenue. So in terms of Union Place and Beechwood, Springfield, sorry. It would be the only 3-story building, or the only 4-story building, I should say. So aren't we taking a big step going beyond the city's desire to have a limit of 3 stories in that immediate vicinity?
Again, I do not believe so, given that it's not a full 4th story. That's part of it. And it's a very unique circumstance with mitigated by the alley next door and the setting next to a 3-story building. Now, as far as, 1- and 2-story buildings, sure, you have some that exist, but the zoning allows the 3 stories, so it's, over time, you might anticipate that you'll have many of those buildings redeveloped. But again, I think we're not trying to say that there's, 4-story buildings all over the CRBD now, but it's just basically that we're not coming in with something that's not here already.
So let me ask you another question. I mean, obviously, the applicant came to you, said, we'd like to have your testimony, reviewed the plans, you decided it was okay, it was not a significant negative impact to have that 4-story. What would the application have to look like with that 4-story for you to say, no, I can't testify on this because it's just, what would it have to have been? In fairness, I haven't given thought to that, but again, I think the difference being, if it was a straight, a box that just, certainly a new building, if it was just saying, let's build out to the maximum, the property lines, 4 stories straight up, that would, I would imagine, I'd have to consider that very carefully, or if at all, because it would be, I think, much, more impactful. But as far as what we have with the step backs and the particular setting here of the building, essentially extending it above the existing 3rd floor, I think it's a reasonable, in this location. So you're hanging that on the fact that the visibility is mitigated by the setback, and that's the primary reason?
That, as well as, right, having a unique context here where you can take the additional floor area that, essentially is permitted, a box, as I mentioned in response to Mr. Snykes' question, floor area ratio is a way of being more flexible than just saying, here are the lines, here are the numbers. It's a way you can take the same amount, because the space is, the same amount as you would have if you built a 3-story building right out to the property lines. So in this case, I think it's a reasonable compromise to get the benefits of preserving the building and providing for new, uses that are consistent with the downtown master plan.
All right, thank you.
I just had a question that you made me think of something which I don't know. Given that, the appurtenance height is above the maximum height too, has there been any consideration to reducing the size of the 4th floor, perhaps setting back even further where maybe you have a little bit smaller office space upstairs? You can still have roof above the 3rd floor, but move the appurtenances on top of the 3rd floor there, like carve out a place there, if you made that building smaller.
The elevators, the issue. But actually, on this point, while you're doing this, what's the AFF for the finished ceiling height on the 4th floor?
What's AFF?
Sorry,
Above
what's the
finished
finished
floor.
ceiling height?
The goal is 9 feet minimum. So between the HVAC, the sprinkler system, we have 12.5 feet floor to floor. So that
12.5
would give
feet
us,
floor to
yeah,
floor.
so that would give us the 9-foot clear ceiling height.
So I was thinking along those lines, of can you bring that ceiling down? But a 9-foot ceiling, candidly, is probably about as tight as you'd ever want to go.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, can you bring that floor down to get your height down? But it seems like you guys are already on that line.
So to kind of speak to your question about why the 12 feet and why the dimension that we held, these 2 egress stairs need to be remote, which means that they have to be 1/3 the diagonal distance of the building. And they're actually spaced as far apart as they possibly can. So then that would have actually put the stair on the terrace. And then pushing that back further would have made it, you have to egress through the terrace to exit.
They have to be so far apart?
Yes.
I thought they
One-third
could be
diagonal
no more
distance.
than, they can be closer, but they can't be
No,
more than.
minimum.
That's the minimum.
One-third
He has
diagonal
them-
distance of the
They
building.
can't be any closer.
Yes.
They can be further
So
apart.
the
well,
stairs
no,
are
they
pushed
can't-
to the outer limits of where that
I
could be.
thought you could not be any more than 75 feet from any exit.
Not in a
No, it's
sprinkler.
100 feet on office use.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so it's 100 feet,
But
but that
that's-
means you're 75
But I
that
need
way.
two means of egress, and those cannot be more than one-third the diagonal, or less than one-third the diagonal distance of the building.
No less than one.
But if you shifted the doors down on that, I'm going to call it down on that drawing, I guess it's
Then
south.
this would project
Yeah.
out beyond the,
I guess, when you could, could you jog any of that out, make the patio deeper, just to
I
make the
think it
fourth
would-
floor
How
look
would you
smaller?
be able to rent office space
Yeah.
that has
Not-
yeah, I don't know.
HVAC equipment next to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, on
Doesn't
the
make any
outside in the
sense.
corner.
So-
If I
don't
could
know.
just jump in, I think that, Michael, you can say it better, but you have gone over this probably 5,000 times to try to limit and make it work, and
I also think a jogged fourth floor or stepped fourth floor wouldn't work with the architectural style of the colonial and federalist style of the existing building. So if you started jogging and kind of shaping that fourth floor to minimize your line of sight, then I think it'll have an impact on how that building will look.
But we're saying that no one is actually seeing the fourth floor. That's part of the testimony right there.
Yes,
And,
but
so-
you will
No, but you're
see
gonna
down
say
the
side.
alleyway, and if you
On the
start
side,
stepping
well,
that-
yeah, I don't know how much you would see from the side, a little bit, but,
Well,
But
you'd
if
see,
you brought
you'd see
if you
it
brought
walking up,
forward,
Yeah.
you would actually start
Yeah.
hitting that
Yeah.
sky plane.
and it's very visible walking up and down the street. If you're right in front of it, maybe you won't see it, but walking up and down the
yeah,
street. you see it.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you don't give a view from the, I guess, the north side,
From the north side, the boxwood building will mostly screen your line of
except
sight.
for the elevator shaft.
The elevator shaft only projects about 2 feet, 2 feet above the roof elevation, so you will not see that from the street elevation. If you're looking from above or from a fourth floor, you may see the tip of that, but the clear height you need is 16 feet for the elevator, and that's why we need that slight
Is
projection.
it hydraulic?
Hydraulic, yeah.
What's the finish of the enclosure for the elevator?
It'll be stainless steel, I think is the standard that we put for this. But it'll be a standard finish from the elevator manufacturer.
I meant the exterior,
Oh, the exterior, it'll be masonry.
masonry,
Yep,
to match the building in
to
essence?
mat, it'll be painted, correct.
So I should remember this, but I don't. So where will the elevator, where will that be?
If I could, it's like behind the window, kind of back there.
Okay.
Roughly the northeast corner?
It'll be, so the elevator comes up here in the building, and this is the only area of the appurtenance right there, that small box. So it's set back so far from the building.
So which side is Beechwood on that? Where you?
Beechwood is on this side
On
here,
that
on
side,
the
okay.
the
It's
left-hand
on
side
the
of your plan.
side next to
Correct.
Boxwoods.
So this is abutting the Boxwood building.
So you might see it from the parking lot across the street. That's about it.
From the
Allison?
parking structure?
No?
Or
No,
the-
from the parking, the Bank Street lot.
You would have to be almost at Springfield Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have for this witness? Seeing none. Questions from the public for this witness? No? All right, thank you so much. Hillary, anything you want to wrap up?
I do have a summation, but did you want neighbor comments first, or do you want me to do my summation?
We could do neighbor comments after your summation.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge the significant effort that's gone into the evolution of this application. Following the prior hearing, the applicant carefully considered the comments and concerns raised by the board, the Historic Preservation Commission, and the members of the public, and undertook a comprehensive redesign of the project. The plans before the board tonight represent a substantial departure from the original submission and reflect a meaningful effort to respond to the issues that were identified during this process. The applicant has made substantial changes to reduce the overall impact of the proposal, including preserving the existing Beechwood Road and side alley facades, increasing setbacks to neighboring properties, reducing building coverage and height, and refining the architectural design of the proposed addition to complement the historic district. These revisions demonstrate the applicant's commitment to working collaboratively with the board and the HPC and to achieving a design that balances preservation, neighborhood compatibility, and the reasonable use of the property. We respectfully submit that the revised application before the board tonight represents a thoughtful and appropriate redevelopment of the site, and that the testimony presented demonstrates that the requested relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or impairment of the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. And for those reasons, we respectfully request that the board favorably consider the application before it this evening.
Thank you so much, Hillary. Public comments at this time. Sure, come on up. We're going to swear you in.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Is Caroline King, K-I-N-G.
Thank you.
And do you need any other information?
Address, please,
Oh,
as well.
38 Gloucester.
Please proceed. Thank you.
I'm here representing the HPC and also the Summit Historical Society because we work together on looking to really afford and educate the town and everyone about historic preservation. So I'm here to say that the HPC truly appreciates the recognition of the historic value of this 1897 structure and its contributing character to the Summit Downtown Historic District. We spent a fair amount of time, and we're very appreciative of the board for, I think, really spending some time with the materials that we submitted, and we are truly appreciative of the applicant and their team and the continued dialogue we were able to have with them and the effort, which I think was substantial, for them to take what would have been a complete demolition, if I understood, and we all understood the first proposal. So the other thing we'd like to share is that as an HPC, at least this HPC, there are different spectrums of where historic preservationists sit. As a group, we're very supportive of adaptive reuse and the fact that you can't necessarily always be frozen. In this case, it's 129 years, I believe, in time of 1897 buildings, and that we believe that adjustments do need to be made for current needs and conditions, and that that balance needs to be taken, but that first and foremost, respecting the historic value, but certainly in this case, there's enhancement, and it takes a lot of funding to restore buildings, and this is a big difference in choice from complete demolition. So we really do believe this proposal is a good example of preservation of the historic character of downtown Summit, so we support this application.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. King.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. With that, Mr. Ball, can you tell us the number of votes required for approval and the conditions?
Yes, so we do have a D6 height variance involved. 5 votes are required to approve the application. I do have quite a few conditions, as well as some which I will, like some board input to confirm whether we still need them. I will also note, as I discussed with Ms. Ulls, my notes from the prior hearing and the prior conditions, I don't have them on this computer, but I'm sure the applicant's counsel, if we get to that point, would work with us on finalizing any of the conditions involved in the prior hearing as well. So I do have that the applicant's first, our usual, compliance with conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. Second, that the applicant shall replace the 2 existing shade trees subject to the review and approval of the city forester. Third, that the applicant shall submit pedestrian access plans and traffic plans to address access during construction subject to the review and approval of the police department. Fourth, that the hours of the roof use will be limited from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and the lights will be turned off at 10 p.m. Fifth, that there shall be no speakers or electronic sound amplification devices installed on the roof patio area. Sixth, that any rooftop furniture shall be secured in a manner to avoid being blown away during any storms. Seventh, and this is one that I wanted to check with the board. We did discuss I believe it was a foundation inspection, correct me if that terminology is wrong?
Yes, I believe that's correct. And that's typically a normal course of action, but if the board wanted to identify that to be sure of this FAR being in compliance.
And who would that be typically submitted to review? Would that be to board
No,
engineer,
because
city
the
engineer?
building inspector would be doing that.
Okay.
Along with confirming that with the zoning officer, probably.
So just a heads up on this one, like, we should give the jurisdiction to the construction department.
Yeah.
If they mess up, our recourse to them is saying, sorry, take square footage off the roof. Just to be that clear. I mean, it really is that simple. I don't want to overthink it. But like, that's the risk they're running, is that they'll have to spend money to literally take FAR to be in compliance. That's the way it's done in a lot of
But the guide rails are already in place.
Correct.
We don't need to add any, or codify this in any other way.
Right.
There's already,
The penalty is so costly that they really shouldn't mess up.
right.
Well, I will say, we can't say you must remove it from the roof, because they could always come back and apply for additional variance
They
relief
absolutely
at that
could.
point, so. But I think one way to ensure, through a condition, that that doesn't happen, is that the foundation inspection shall be prepared and submitted to the, I guess, zoning officer and construction official.
For verification,
Prior to commencing
Yeah.
construction, to ensure the FAR remains at the proposed 299%.
Prior to constructing the foundation walls.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
It's done as a stakeout.
Yeah, so they'll stake the corners of the foots, and then
All right, those are the conditions that I have noted. Ms. Ellis, I do believe you mentioned there was one about establishing an escrow for landscaping?
There was some discussion at the last hearing about an escrow to ensure that we replace those shade trees.
So that's-
Obviously, we're,
Covered by the condition
Yes.
that they're replaced,
Yes.
subject to the city
Yes.
forester's review. So those are the conditions that I have noted. If there's any further from the board, please let me know.
just to make sure that that note on that SP 201 is updated to show, reflect that they actually will be ultimately managing the neighbor's stormwater via that new pipe. I
Yep.
think the note is just not correct.
Okay?
So with that, who would like to begin our executive session?
I think Ms. Oles had some neighbor comments that she was going to share.
I think she was talking about this.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Sure.
you. Yep,
Yep.
I think we covered that. Thank you, though.
great.
Who wants to begin?
I will.
Allison.
Well, first, I thank you so much for coming back with a very revised plan. I wish we started with this plan, but we didn't, but we're here now. And it's really appreciated when the applicant listens to the board, listens to the public, and understands, like the planner said, that how this new application will fit in with the streetscape that's currently there. It's not gonna stick out. Appreciate, like I said, keeping the historic significance of it, and visually, I think it's a very nice looking building, and I can fully support it, and I appreciate all the extra work that you did, and the extra expense, I'm sure it is. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate that. Who else?
I'll jump
Jay.
in.
Yep.
So this was a fun first meeting to review on YouTube, but I'm really glad to see the revisions here. The effort that is going to go into restoring and maintaining that facade is something that I can tell you from personal experience. Good luck, it's a lot of fun. But I think it's going to deliver a product that not only fits the town, but really drives the master plan and what's supposed to be delivering a downtown use and a function that is going to benefit not only the streetscape by maintaining that entire linear frontage with the neighboring property, but ultimately has very limited, if any, negative impact on the community. I think the benefits so far outweigh any of the detriments here. I fully support this, and good luck building it. I really look forward to seeing it finished.
Sure. I also can support this application. I am incredibly appreciative of the redesign and the efforts to reuse the existing facade. I believe this is a good compromise where we are meeting our objectives for the zone by preserving the historic character, but also creating a modern workspace. And you know, I look at it as a compromise of, I recognize, you know, what would this building look like if you built it out over 3 floors? You could do that. I don't think that would be the best outcome for Summit. And honestly, I believe that the positives outweigh the negatives, and specifically where it relates to the height, because I think that's the biggest consideration here. It does not appear that there's going to be any additional shadow impact from the 4th story, because we already have a 3-story building casting a shadow on a 2-story building behind it. I think that there's also minimal impact due to the fact that the building is not direct. There's the alley, which sort of buffers the building. I mean, if there had been a 2-story building attached to it, I think that 4th story would look very different. But I do think the alley is sort of a benefit that this building has, and that it helps sort of break it up a little bit. So I think it helps make the visual impact a little bit less. And obviously the setback allows that the facade sort of ties into the neighboring boxwood building and gives it a little more of a cohesive look for the block. So I do believe the positives outweigh the negatives, and I can support this application.
David?
So, for me, this is a much closer balancing in terms of how I look at it. And I think about the master plan, and it both advances and detracts from the master plan in the sense of this is clearly an improvement on the original plan, and just taking a functionally obsolete building that has a lot of life safety concerns and bringing them up to modern standard is certainly consistent with the goals of our master plan. However, our master plan also calls for a particular height in our downtown district, and this is above it. And I think we established at the first meeting that when you purchase the building, maybe the degree of due diligence that you did in purchasing that building wasn't up to the degree that you probably would have done in retrospect. So I think about, weighing those things, and then I'm actually thinking about the old Sherwin-Williams paint store in Chatham, that building. And I remember going there one day after not having bought paint in a while and discovering there's a new building there. And I looked at the way they approached it, and it's actually very similar to this building. And I think about when you look at that top level, does it really interfere with the streetscape? Not especially. You see it, but it's not obtrusive. So when I think about that sort of structure right here, I say it's not going to be quite that obtrusive. Now, the view when walking north up Beechwood, you're going to see it. Mr. Yuko pointed it out. The second you step out of that train station, you're seeing that. And I guess what I'm nervous about is, consistent with our master plan, as a municipality, we don't necessarily want to see more of that. So, and that's something the governing body ultimately has to address. But when I think about all of the balancing that we have to do as a board, I'd probably come out in favor of it, though begrudgingly so.
Well said. Thank you, Dave. Tom?
So, I mean, I've been listening, and clearly I think my questions earlier communicated some of the struggle I have with this one. First, I want to add to the compliments. Much improved from the first application. Mr. Yeager's projects are always wonderful projects, so that goes without saying. I am concerned about the 4th story, and I know this setback has worked, at least one other building I can think of in town, and probably other places too, in masking the visibility, not hiding it, but masking it. So I've been struggling with this all weekend, watching the video and walking around the neighborhood today. And to Mr. Reigel's point, I think 4-story without the setback, I think would be an easy no. 4-story with the setback is, it's a harder decision. I think I'm coming down very reluctantly to vote in favor, but it's very reluctant. Yeah, I think that's where I am right now.
We'll put an asterisk next to your vote, all right, Tony?
Don't forget, there's front and back setback.
So, if I may?
Yes, please.
I think this is a fantastic project. It looks great. Like my cohorts, I am struggling with the fourth floor addition. We do have zoning in place. Again, it comes down to a balancing act. Can you see it? Can't you see it? Just a little history, and maybe I'm going to bore you for the next 40 seconds. That whole block burnt down in the 1800s. So I think that alley serves both as a fire break in old mentality. They didn't have any other way to prevent fires from spreading. Also utility for garbage trucks and stuff like that. My big concern is this is a second or third or fourth building that has a fourth story. Where do we draw the line? The Historical Preservation Committee member was here. That kind of swayed me a lot in my thought process. Again, reluctantly, I am not in favor of 4 stories, but this is done in I guess the best balancing act of working for the client and working toward the master plan's direction. Maybe not the best way, but I can reluctantly see the positives to this, and I can support it, though I'm not a second asterisk.
And you weren't here for that fire, were you, Don? There wasn't.
Oh, no, I wasn't. Hey, look, I got gray hair, but I ain't that old.
I would also like to add to the list of kudos and congratulations to your team for hearing the board. I think we can safely say this is a great example of the system working the way it's supposed to, right? That you were willing to hear the zoning board, that you were willing to listen to historic preservation, means a lot to me personally. I would like to emphasize to everyone that if we grant this variance, it doesn't mean we're rewriting the zoning code, right? This is a very specific set of constraints. I mean, the team did an excellent job of explaining how very difficult this site is to deal with. And I think the last thing anyone would want to see is a building that sticks out 4 feet beyond boxwood, right? It just makes no sense. So to avoid that and to get this facade restored, I think to have the 4th floor is a small price to pay. And my colleagues said it very well. The setback makes all the difference in the world. It's going to be an improved tenant experience. It's going to be an improved experience from people down on the street. And I just think it's a fantastic project. Mr. Mullen talked about the life safety issue. Obviously, bringing it up to code and becoming ADA compliant is something that's absolutely in keeping with our master plan and something that we'll always support as a board. So with that, I could say I'm very much in favor, no asterisks at all for me. And with that, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Ball, can you call the roll for us?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Chair Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
and Chairman Loikens.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Do you have to remove the asterisk since you moved to approve?
He goes from 2 down to 1 after.
All right, we do also have 4 resolutions on for memorialization this evening, so I'm going to try to struggle through this for everybody here. First up, we have 2 Crest Acre Court, application number ZB 262328. The eligible voting members are Chairman Loikens, Vice Chairwoman Zahn, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Curran, and Ms. Chifo. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Who was the second? Thank you. And sorry about that. Vice Chair Zahn.
Yes.
Mr. Yuko.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
and Ms. Chifo.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman Loikis.
Yes. Thank you, Allison, for the assist.
Next up, we have 21 West End Avenue, application number ZB 252316. The eligible voting members are Mr. Loikis, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Curran, Ms. Chifo, and Mr. Chanchuli. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
and Chairman Loikis.
Yes.
Next up, we have 152 Beekman Road, ZB 262332. Eligible voting members are Chairman Loikis, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Curran, Ms. Chifo, and Mr. Chanchuli. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
and Chairman Loikis.
Yes.
Thank you. And last up, we have 21 Dunder Drive, application ZB 262334. Eligible voting members are Chairman Loikis, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Curran, Ms. Chifo, and Mr. Chanchuli. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo.
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
and Chairman Loikis.
Yes.
Thank you. There are no minutes on for memorialization.
I have a question about I'm sorry, the applicant that was just here, it said 13 Beechwood, but it was 1115 Beechwood. Does it make a difference that they're all their paperwork?
No, the application properties are 11 through 15.
Oh, it's
and-
okay.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yep,
Sorry.
no worries. Unless there's anything further.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I will probably not be here on the 3rd.
Yeah, I don't need